Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Read the Creator Varka, text 14 and 15. I got a couple of notices on my screen that says internet connection is unsteady. So hopefully there won't be any, or unstable, it's saying it again. Hopefully there won't be a problem going forward. Nyarundan udgalad bashpam devaki sute niryat yagarano bhadram iti syad bandavastriya. Nyarundan udgalad bashpam otkantya devaki sute niryat yagarano bhadram iti syad bandavastriya. Nyarundan udgalad bashpam otkantya devaki sute niryatyagarano bhadram iti syad bandavastriya. Everyone chant, please.
Hare Krishna. Nyarundhan udgalad vaspam Atkanthaya devaki sute Niryati agaranno bhadram iti syad bandhavaistriyah.
Hare Krishna. Nairandan udgalad bashpam atkantayad devaki sute nirayati agorano badram iti sayad bandava strityaha. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Narundhan udgalad bhaspam utkantya devaki sute niratyagaran no abhadran iti syad bandhavastya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Narundhan udgalad bashpam aut kanthayad devaki sute niryati agaranano bhadram iti sayad bandhavastriya. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Nyarundha udgaladha basma autkantya devaki sute niryatya agarano bhadrami iti syad bandhavastriya. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Nyarundan, checking with great difficulty. Udgalat, overflowing. Bashpam, tears. Otkantyat, because of great anxiety. Devaki sute, unto the son of Devaki. Niryati, having come out. Agarat, from the palace. Na, not. Abhadram, inauspiciousness. Iti, thus. Syat, may happen. Bandhava, relative. Striya, ladies. Translation. The female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna, came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. There were hundreds of ladies in the palace of Hastinapur. All of them were affectionate to Krishna. All of them were relatives also. When they saw that Krishna was going away from the palace for his native place, they were very anxious for him. And as usual, tears began to roll down their cheeks. They thought at the same time that tears at that moment might be a cause of misfortune for Krishna. Therefore, they wanted to check them. This was very difficult for them because the tears could not be checked. Therefore, they smeared their tears in their eyes and their hearts throbbed. Therefore, ladies who were the wives and daughters-in-law of those who died in the battlefield never came in direct contact with Krishna, but all of them heard of him and his great activities, and thus they thought of him, talked of him, his name, fame, etc., and became affectionate also, like those who were in direct contact. Therefore, directly or indirectly, anyone who thinks of Krishna, talks of Krishna, or worships Krishna becomes attached to him. Because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between his name, form, quality, etc. Our intimate relation with Krishna can be confidentially revived by our talking of, hearing of, or remembering him. It is so done due to spiritual potency. And text 15 I'll read through, which has no purport. Mridanga Shanga Beryascha Vina Panava Gomukha Dundurya Naka Gantadya Nedur Dundu Bayastata. Mridanga, sweet sounding drum. Shanka, conch shell. Berya, brass band. Cha, and Veena, string band. Panava, a kind of flute. Gomukha, another flute. Dunduri, another drum. Anaka, kettle. Ganta, bell. Adya, others. Nedu, sounded. Dundubhaya, other different types of drums. Tata, at that time. While the Lord was departing from the palace of Hastinapur, different types of drums like the mridanga, dola, nagra, dunduri, and dundubi, and flutes of different types, the veena, gomukha, and beri, all sounded together to show him honor. Nyarundan udgalad bashpam otkantya devaki sute niryatyagara no bhadram iti syad bandhavastriya. The female relatives whose eyes were flooded with tears out of anxiety for Krishna came out of the palace. They could stop their tears only with great difficulty. They feared that tears would cause misfortune at the time of departure. Nama Om Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Vishtai Bhutle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschada Deshatarine. This is just what an amazing and beautiful verse. Every verse in the Bhagavatam is wonderful, but I always feel like that in preparing for a class, that every verse seems so special above all the others. And then you read the next one and it's special in its own way, and each chapter is special. But actually, there's some very special things about this particular chapter. Something that I noticed in preparing for this and thinking about it, that this chapter, we've so many interesting chapters, the introduction, and then all Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and we learn all the different avatars of Krishna. and their relationship to Krishna. And we hear about the life story of Narada Muni, how he became Narada Muni, and how the Bhagavatam was composed. Then we hear the prayers of Kunti, and and this is actually continuing in that same thing. Krishna is still, getting ready to leave. That was also Queen Kunti's prayers with Krishna preparing to leave. And then the passing away of Bhishma Dev, so how to leave Krishna or serve Krishna in separation, how to die in Krishna consciousness is presented by Bhishma Dev. And this chapter is very wonderful. This is the first time in the Bhagavatam that we see a kind of mass, almost uncontrolled or very extreme ecstasy by like a whole city. So like a big mass of devotees just all in ecstasy, all appreciating Krishna together and worshiping Krishna and exhibiting all these amazing ecstatic symptoms towards Krishna with tremendous ecstasy and also in a group. And in that way, I saw it as sort of preparation for and reminding me in a way of that this is the subject matter of like the whole 10th canto almost, except in Vrindavan and the Brijabasis, all of the gopis worshiping and loving Krishna in this mass ecstasy with ecstatic symptoms, and all of the cowherd boys and all of the Brijabasis. So this is almost like a little taste of that in advance, this big mass ecstasy of devotees worshiping Krishna. So I was really appreciating, really enjoying that aspect of it. And earlier we heard of all the residents of Hastinapur. We heard of how the Pandavas were crying and preparing and lamenting on Krishna's leaving. And now we're hearing about the ladies of the town of Hastinapur, that they were experienced this Udgalad Bashpam, which is the same as we also know Galad Ashudaraya is the same as Udgalad Bashpam, that their eyes were overflowing with tears. Why? Because of Utkantya, this tremendous feel. Utkantya literally means just like a tremendous overflowing, overwhelming feeling of emotion, which Prabhupada translates as feelings of anxiety, because of great anxiety. So they have this tremendous anxiety. Oh, Krishna is leaving. And because of that, they naturally started crying in this great anxiety of being separated from Krishna. But at the same time, they thought, oh, this crying, it's inauspicious. We don't want to create an inauspicious atmosphere. So on the one hand, they can't stop crying. On the other hand, they can't cry. And this was only increasing their intensity of emotion and increasing their feelings of anxiety, because they couldn't help but cry because Krishna is leaving, but they didn't want to cry because they didn't want to make an inauspicious scene. Like even today, there's so many pop songs, oh baby don't cry, or what's that, John Denver, I'm leaving on a jet plane, don't cry, smile for me instead. So this is a common idea. You don't want to cry and make like a negative scene, even though you're feeling sad because someone you love is leaving, but you want to put on a good face. You want to make an auspicious, a cheerful atmosphere, not make it more painful than it has to be. But this is the dilemma of all these ladies, residents of Hastinapur, what they were feeling. And Prabhupada, when he gave class on this, he said that these ladies, because they had these opposing feelings, that they couldn't help crying, but they also had to restrain their crying. He said they were between Scylla and Charybdis. This is the reference to what's his name, who composed the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, that the Scylla and Charybdis were two, a monster on one side and a whirlpool on the other, and the boats had to thread their way between them. And if you go on one side, the monster will eat you. And if you go on the other side, the whirlpool will catch you and destroy you. So this is the expression between Scylla and Charybdis, which Prabhupada used, expressing how these great devotees of Krishna were feeling. And what they were feeling and what they were expressing was an amazing expression of the highest love, of the highest ecstasy in Krishna consciousness. I think it was a couple of weeks ago when I gave class, we talked about the concept of vibhava. Vibhava is an ecstasy, something that stimulates your ecstasy for Krishna. Because the full expression of love for Krishna fully develops when these 5 different factors, vibhava, sattvika bhava, anubhava, sthayi bhava, and the 5th one is escaping my memory right now. Someone knows, butt in and tell me. I can't remember the 5th one. But anyway, these 5 kinds of ecstasies all combine together to create the fullest manifestation of love of Krishna. And like I said, vibhava, we discussed a couple of weeks ago, this is the stimulus for love. Just like when a mother sees her child or even just sees the shoes of her child, that stimulates her maternal affection. But today what we're seeing are the expressions. The love is being in the hearts of these women of Hastinapur is being stimulated by seeing Krishna, and specifically by seeing him getting ready to leave town. So it's stimulating their love and their feelings of anxiety and their feelings of separation from Krishna. And then after that, those feelings get expressed in certain ways. And that expression of ecstatic love for Krishna is called in 2 categories. There's sattvika bhav and there's anubhav. Sattvika bhav means involuntary expressions like crying. They're feeling so much emotion, they're just spontaneously, they're crying. And there's so many things we hear about these things, crying and rolling on the floor and fainting and body changing in color. And these are all described. Te stamba sweda romancha swara beta tave patu vaivarnyam ashru pralaya ityasto stvika astvika smritaha. That becoming bewildered or paralyzed, perspiring, hair standing on end, voice choking up, trembling, body changing colors, sometimes becoming flushed, sometimes becoming pale, crying tears, and outright fainting. These are the different categories of sattvika bhav, these involuntary, very strong emotional responses in ecstasy of love of Krishna. And some of them are even more intense, just that are hardly ever expressed. Just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita, you hear examples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes he would pass out unconscious, and even the joints of his body would become separated, or sometimes the joints of his body would like withdraw into his body like a tortoise. And these very extreme symptoms, which would sometimes cause great anxiety and distress for his devotees when they would see it. But all these sattvika bhavs are expressions of involuntary expressions of emotional feelings for Krishna. And just like these ladies, they're feeling that udgalad bashpam, they're crying these tears. And in previous verses, we've heard of these other symptoms being expressed. In the previous text, text 13, all their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. So they were becoming bewildered. They were not only crying, but they would become stunned, because they would look at Krishna and their eyes wouldn't even blink. So stamba, they would become stunned or paralyzed. And they would also become bewildered and wander here and there aimlessly like a crazy person. So they were expressing it there. Earlier verse text, let's see, in text 9 and 10. At that time, all of the Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yuyutsu, Kripacharya, Nakula, Sahadev, Bhimasen, Domyan, Satvati, all nearly fainted because it was impossible for them to bear separation from Krishna. So this is another one of these satvika bhavs, and these are the ecstasies that a devotee naturally expresses. Fainting, crying, all of these amazing things. Imitating them is the business of the sahajas and cheaters, but when they're genuine, they're an actual expression of love for Krishna. Satvika bhavs. Then there's the anubhavs. As the satvika bhavs are involuntary expressions, the anubhavs are more or less voluntary expressions of emotional love for Krishna. Just like going back to the example of the mother and the child. The mother sees the child and she feels love in her heart. And because of that love in her heart, she may spontaneously, involuntarily start crying. Or if she sees her child in danger, she may also involuntarily become pale or become stunned or faint or something like that. But then also there's voluntary responses, that the mother sees the child and feels the expression of love. So she immediately runs to the child and picks up the child and hugs and kisses it. This is the voluntary response. Or if the child's in danger, she'll immediately run to protect the child, to save the child, to heal the child. So these are anubhavs, or voluntary responses to a devotee in this great intense love of Krishna. And these are things like singing and dancing and laughing and all these other types of things. And combined, these are all the different. Actually, these are just samples. There's actually an unlimited variety of ways of expressing involuntarily and voluntarily all these expressions of love for Krishna. And all of these residents of Hastinapur are expressing these in different ways. And as far as the anubhavas, aside from singing, dancing, rolling on the ground, laughing, all these things, there are other anubhavas, because sometimes, as I said earlier, the satvika bhavas, someone can imitate them. Prabhupada said sometimes about, for example, crying for Krishna in one purport, he says, sometimes people just have naturally moist eyes. So not every crying is crying for Krishna. And not every rolling on the ground is a sincere expression of love for Krishna. Sometimes sahajas and other people will just do it for show. And even same thing with the anubhavas. People can act in a way that looks like devotion to Krishna, but not be genuine. So therefore, there are anubhavas that are special and unique in the sense that they can't be faked and they can't be imitated. And these are mentioned both by Srila Sanatana Goswami, I think, in his Hari Bhakti Vilas, and also by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. These are the anubhavas that a cheater cannot imitate and a genuine devotee cannot hide. Because a devotee can also hide his ecstatic symptoms. Prabhupada pretty rarely would cry or exhibit any of these things. And even one time he started crying in ecstasy, and a devotee afterwards mentioned, "Oh, Prabhupada, I saw you crying today during the kirtan." And Prabhupada, he actually became a little shamed and said, "Oh, I don't do it very often." So a devotee will even hide these things, but these cannot be hid. Kshantir avyarta kalatvam viraktir manya shunyata ashabanda samutkanta namagane sadaruchi asaktis tad gunakyane pritis tad vasati stale iti adaya anubhavasyur jata bhavankure jane. These 6 anubhavas, or these different anubhavas, these are the seeds that grow into the sprout of love of Krishna. And they're kshantir, tolerating difficulties, accepting difficulties peacefully. Avyarta kalatvam, never wasting a moment in Krishna consciousness. Viraktir, actually being detached from material life. Manashunyata, being completely devoid of any sense of pride or false prestige. Ashabanda, feeling oneself incapable of approaching Krishna or worshiping Krishna, but at the same time, maintaining a great hope that someday they can approach Krishna and worship Krishna. Ashabanda. Samut Kanta, always being fully enthusiastic and fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Samut Kanta is the same as the word in today's verse, Ot Kantya, very intensely feeling, very intensely emotional and intensely enthusiastic always for devotional service. Namagane Sadaruchi, always having an unquenchable thirst for chanting the holy name of the Lord. Asaktis tad gunakyane, always being completely attached to hearing and chanting the glories and pastimes of Krishna. Pritis tad vasati stale, and always worshiping and hankering for the divine abode of the Lord in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So these are anubhavas that cannot be denied and cannot be hidden and cannot be faked by anyone. But in any case, the summary is that these devotees in Hastinapur, and specifically these ladies, en masse are experiencing this amazing love for Krishna and expressing and showing these amazing symptoms of love for Krishna almost in a way that we won't see really until the 10th canto. Again, until the 10th canto, when that ecstasy is again shown and even surpassed by the residents of Vrindavan. So this is these amazing ladies of Vrindavan, of Hastinapur, I'm sorry. And then in the second half of today's purport, Prabhupada says a beautiful and very amazing and very important thing. I'll reread the second half of today's purport. He writes, therefore, ladies who were the wives and daughters-in-law of those who died in the battle never came in direct contact with Krishna. That's amazing. They never came in contact with Krishna before. Back to the reading. But all of them heard of him and his great activities, and thus they thought of him, talked of him, his name, fame, etc., and became affectionate also like those who were in direct contact. Therefore, directly or indirectly, anyone who thinks of Krishna, talks of Krishna, or worships Krishna becomes attached to him. Because Krishna is absolute. There is no difference between his name, form, quality, etc. Our intimate relation with Krishna can be confidentially revived by our talking of, hearing of, or remembering him. It is done due to spiritual potency. So this is an amazing and really important point, that these ladies, they were not personal servants of Krishna or personal associates of Krishna or servants or intimate with him, and they had never even met him for the most part. The Pandavas, of course, had, but these ladies hadn't. But still their love for Krishna was still at this fever-pitch level just as much as the Pandavas or other people who actually had his association. So this is amazing that Krishna can be approached in this way. Not just amazing, but essential. So central to our practice of Krishna consciousness. Again, Prabhupada says, because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between his name, form, quality, etc. We know and we appreciate the importance of the philosophical doctrine of Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva. But this is closer than that. This is Achintya Abheda Tattva, not Bheda Bheda, but Achintya Abheda, that there's no difference between Krishna and Krishna's name, Krishna and Krishna's form, his pastimes, his associates. All of these things, Krishna is directly there, personally there, one with those situations. We all know, for example, Krishna's holy name, Bina Tvam Nami Namino, that there's no difference between the name and the named. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Shuddho Porno Nitya Mukto Bina Tvam Nami Namino. The holy name is so purely spiritual in every way, but not only that, it's identical with Krishna himself. Prabhupada also says in the Bhagavad Gita purport that when a devotee chants Krishna's holy name, then Krishna and his internal potency are dancing on his tongue. So this is not just a slogan or not just a philosophical point, but this is a central, very relevant tenet of our philosophy and central to our practice of Krishna consciousness, that there's no difference between Krishna and his holy name. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, it's just as good, exactly the same as being with Krishna. Or the Bhagavad Gita, one lecture, this is a lecture Prabhupada saying, if you read Bhagavad Gita as it is through the disciplic succession, then you are as good as Arjuna hearing directly from Krishna. There is no difference. But if you play rascaldom, this word means this word means that, this word means something else, this is rascaldom. If you play rascaldom, then you will remain a rascal. You will not improve. But if you hear exactly like Arjuna, as Arjuna said, Sarvam etad ritam manye, my dear Krishna, whatever you are saying, that is all right. In toto, I do not misinterpret. So we're not on the battlefield with Krishna. Maybe some of us were. I wasn't there in any capacity at that time, 5,000 years ago. We're not there on the battlefield with Arjuna and Krishna. But if we hear Bhagavad Gita in this way, fully accepting Krishna and Krishna's words and Krishna's explanation and Arjuna's, and if we accept it just like Arjuna does, then our study of Bhagavad Gita is exactly the same as Arjuna being present on the chariot on the battlefield with Krishna. This is amazing, actually, that Krishna, we're so far away from Krishna. I'm so far away from Krishna in so many ways, but Krishna is giving this intimate access equal to that of the greatest devotees of all time. Or Srimad Bhagavatam, famous Bhagavatam verse, Krishna swadamo pagate dharma jnanadibhi saha. What's that? Dharma jnanadibhi saha. Kalo nashta drishamesha puranarko janodita. One of the questions of the sages is that now that Krishna has left this world, where are we going to find religious principles? And the answer is Krishna swadamo pagate. Krishna has gone back to his dham. He's returned to the spiritual world. He's left this earth planet. Dharma jnanadi visaha. And with him, he's taken with him all dharma, all jnana, all auspicious, pious, spiritual qualities and tendencies. So kalo nashta drishamesha, because of that, all of the residents and inhabitants of Kali Yuga are lost in darkness. But Paranarko Danodita, but this Srimad Bhagavatam is just like the rising sun to give light to those of us in the darkness of Kali Yuga, in the darkness of ignorance. And in explaining that verse in the purport at the end, Srila Prabhupada writes, in other words, if men in this age of Kali want to see the real light of life, they must take to these two books only, and their aim of life will be fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary study of the Bhagavatam, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life. Lord Sri Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad Bhagavatam as the direct representation of Lord Krishna. One who can see Srimad Bhagavatam can see also Lord Sri Krishna in person. They are identical. So this is also so amazing. One who can see Srimad Bhagavatam can also see Lord Sri Krishna in person. So I can see Srimad Bhagavatam. It's here in front of me. I'm seeing it, and I don't have the realization, but I can at least understand or accept that they're identical. I'm seeing this means I'm seeing Krishna directly before me. And that's why we become purified by Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's direct contact with Krishna himself. So in all of these ways, or also actually just a few verses before that, In text 34 of that same chapter, chapter 3 of the first canto, Prabhupada said, because the Lord is the absolute transcendence, all of his forms, names, pastimes, attributes, associates, and energies are identical with him, which is exactly the same thing Prabhupada is saying in today's purport. Because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between his name, form, qualities, etc. So this is the summary of all of this, that these devotees, they never met Krishna, they never served Krishna, they never touched him, but they had heard about him. They had heard about his amazing qualities, his amazing pastimes, and therefore they developed this very highest, topmost level of love for Krishna. So this is amazing and should be very encouraging to all of us. We cannot presume to be personal associates of Krishna. We cannot force our way into the personal association of Krishna. There's one story, I think it's in Hari Sori's diary, where there was one young Indian man who was something of a scholar, or maybe he just thought of himself as a scholar in Sanskrit, and he was associating with the devotees and associating with Prabhupada. And one time he composed a song about Krishna, and he shared it with the devotees and explained it to the devotees, and they were all very amazed and appreciative and thought it was very wonderful. He had composed this song about Krishna. So he then presented, that aspiring devotee then presented the song before Srila Prabhupada. And in that song, he expressed, I don't remember, I think it was Bengali, maybe not Sanskrit. He expressed the sentiment that, oh, Krishna, I request you to come before me dancing so I can see you dancing. And Prabhupada didn't like that at all. That he said, no, this is not how you approach Krishna, that you demand Krishna, you come before me dancing. You're not qualified for that and you can't demand that. We're not Krishna's order giver, we're Krishna's order carrier. So he didn't appreciate that sentiment very much. Then in another lecture, he explained this point very beautifully. He said, the real Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sampradaya is that one should be feeling like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, separation, not Sambhoga. Vipralamba, Sambhoga means meeting and Vipralamba means separation. Vipralamba Seva, quote, oh, I am so wretched, I could not serve Krishna. How I can see Krishna, it is not possible, unquote. In this way, that is the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Quote, but even though I do not see him, neither it is possible for me to see him. What I am insignificant person. Why would Krishna come and see me? Prabhupada said, that is right. Why shall I aspire after seeing Krishna? What qualification I have got? This is bhajan, this is bhajan. Why should I be proud that now I shall see Krishna? What I am. So we should not imagine ourselves to be more qualified or more deserving than we actually are. By our long life in the material world of sin and sense gratification and rejecting Krishna, we have no right to make any demands on Krishna or presumptions of Krishna that I must be in Krishna's association. Therefore, we worship Krishna through chanting his holy name, through serving the deity, through studying Srimad Bhagavatam, through associating with the devotees. And the point is, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's method. This is not a fault in devotional service, or this, oh, if I should be with Krishna, but okay, I'll take this second class method of just hearing and chanting about him and worshiping him in separation. No, that's a misunderstanding. This is Chaitanya, this is the actual method given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to actually approach Krishna. Prabhupada would often say about the Goswamis that they never claimed, oh, I have seen Krishna. Rather, they prayed, Hey Radhe Vrajadevike Chalalite, Hey Nanda Shuno Kuta, Shri Govardhana Padapatale Kalindi Vane Kutaha. They never said, oh, I've got Krishna, I found Krishna, I found Radha, I'm with them, dancing in the rasa dance. No, they said, Radha, Krishna, where are you? Kuta, where are you? Where are you, Queen of Vrindavan? Where are you, son of Nanda Maharaj? Are you in the forest on the bank of the Yamuna? Are you on the slopes of Govardhan Hill? Where are you? Where are you? They were always searching, always lamenting, and not finding Krishna, not attaining Krishna. This is actually their greatest perfection. And the point is, again, this is the method given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to serve Krishna like that. And that's actually the best way of actually attaining Krishna. And there's many examples like these Hastinapur ladies who, without ever meeting Krishna, they developed love for Krishna in the highest degree. There's another example of Queen Rukmini. She was a young girl, the only daughter of King Bhishmaka, and her 5 brothers were there, and she was the sister. And she was getting married off to Shishupal, was it? But she had never met Krishna. But because her father was a great king and a pious king, naturally different sages would come to visit. Narada Muni would visit, this sage and this Muni, they'd come to visit. So naturally she would be there when the sages would visit. She would be there present in the assembly, or she would be rendering service to them. Just like Narada Muni, he was there amongst the Bhakti Vedantas, and because he was present there, he ended up hearing about Krishna. So similarly, Rukmini, Narada Muni would come, sages would come, and they would say, oh, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's Sadaishwarya Purna. He possesses all opulences. His pastimes are so amazing like this, and his qualities are so amazing like that, and his beauty is so incredible like this, and he's the goal of life. So she never met Krishna, but just by hearing about him, she became completely fixed in her consciousness that I will only surrender myself to Krishna as his wife. Never mind what my foolish brother wants to give me to another man. I will never accept anyone but Krishna. So she developed this intense, amazing love. Of course, Rukmini is also eternally the goddess of fortune. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravorty Thakur explains that she's actually an expansion of Radhika herself. But still, the point is there that in that pastime, she had never seen or met Krishna. But just by hearing about him, she developed this most intense, highest kind of love and exclusive devotion only to Krishna. And then she engaged the faithful Brahmana to carry a letter to Krishna, begging Krishna, come and save me. I accept only you as my master, as my husband. Please come and save me from this upcoming wedding ceremony. I can't be married to these other person. I only accept you. And Krishna reciprocated and came, and he delivered her. And she became the #1 queen of all the queens in Dwarka. So this is Rukmini. Just by hearing about Krishna, she developed this manifest. Excuse me. She manifested this most incredible degree of love for Krishna just by hearing. And there's a couple more examples. I'm going to give these other examples because of this one verse. This is a verse that I love so much. It's a very amazing verse spoken by Krishna himself. And it's also, at least as far as I've found so far, it's unique in that this one single verse is actually repeated verbatim twice in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishna spoke this exact same verse twice in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And at least so far, I've never seen any other verse that's repeated exactly verbatim more than once in the Bhagavatam. So because of that, I'll assume that this is a very important point and a very important verse. This is the verse. It's spoken in 10th canto, chapter 23, text 33 by Krishna. And it's also spoken in the 10th canto, chapter 29, text 27. Shravanad darshanad dhyanan mai bhavo nukirtanat natata sanikarshena pratiyata tato grihan. He spoke the same verse to two different groups of devotees. And this verse is, transcendental love for me arises by the devotional processes of hearing about me, seeing my deity form, meditating on me, and faithfully chanting my glories. The same result is not achieved by mere physical proximity. So please go back to your homes. So this is just on its own, it's a beautiful and amazing verse. Shravanad, Darshanad, Dhyanand. Shravanad, by hearing about Krishna. Darshanad, since it's in separation from Krishna, we could expect this darshan to mean darshan of Krishna's deity form. Darshan of the deity form. Dhyanan, by thinking of Krishna, by meditating on Krishna. Mai bhavo. Mai bhavo means bhava, ecstasy, ecstatic love for Krishna. Mai bhavo, anu kirtanat, and by anu kirtanat, by kirtan, by chanting Krishna's glories. So love for Krishna can be attained through hearing, serving the deity, meditating, thinking of Krishna, and chanting about Krishna. Not tata sanikashena, not just by approaching physically, just by some change in geography, that I'm coming closer to Krishna. Now I'm 1,000 miles from Krishna. Now I'm 100 miles from Krishna. Now I'm a foot from Krishna. He says, na tata sanikashena, not by physically approaching. Therefore, pratiyata tato grihan, you should go home. So you could, maybe you could guess who these two groups of devotees were that Krishna spoke this verse to. Does anyone want to try guessing, or does anyone already know who Krishna spoke this verse to twice? Guesses? No?
Gopis.
Gopis is one, yes. And who's the other group?
Are these the wives of the Brahmanas?
Yes, exactly. Very good. Thank you. He spoke this exact verse twice to the Yagyapatnis and to the Gopis. And the Yagyapatnis, they also had never seen Krishna before. They had heard of, they were living in Vrindavan, so naturally they had heard about Krishna, his pastimes, his glories, his beauties. And therefore, when Krishna and the cowherd boys came and they wanted to eat something, so Krishna sent the cowherd boys to the Yagyic Brahmanas, who were very rude and puffed up, and not only wouldn't feed them, but wouldn't even give, so to speak, give them the time of day. They ignored them. And the boys went back to Krishna and disappointed. Oh, we went to beg, but these Brahmanas weren't having any of it and they refused us. So Prabhupada said, Krishna said, yes, don't worry. Now you go to the wives of these Brahmanas. I know that they are my great devotees and they'll supply everything. So they had never met Krishna before, but when they were approached by the cowherd boys, because of hearing about Krishna, their love was so intense that they immediately gathered all the foodstuffs in their house, and immediately all of them brought it out to Krishna and Balaram and all the cowherd boys. And in fact, there was one wife of the Brahmanas who was actually physically restrained by her husband, who would not let her go out to meet Krishna. And because of that, she actually died. She passed away and she attained a spiritual form by which she could approach and serve Krishna. And this is all with never having met Krishna before. And they went there and they offered beautiful prayers and appreciation to Krishna and fed him and the cowherd boys sumptuously. And then they said, okay, we're here now. We've left our husbands behind. We've left Dharma behind. We've left all family relations and principles of religion and good behavior and society and friendship aside, and we've come to you. Now we're simply going to stay with you. And Krishna spoke this verse, that you can worship me by hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the deity, not just by physical proximity. Therefore, you should go back home. And this is a very intelligent and very important instruction from Krishna. And they went home, and indeed their husbands and everyone all accepted them, even though they had transgressed Dharma by some material point of view. Still, everyone accepted them. God, we were such idiots that our wives were actually behaving properly, and we're the ones who were fools with all of our yagyas and our study of the Vedas and ritual this and sacrifice that. We've completely missed the point of all of it. Therefore, they said, curses, to hell with all of our ritualistic ceremonies, to hell with our birth, our material seminal birth, and our birth as brahmanas, and our third birth as performers of sacrifice, and to hell with all of it. So this is the one instance of this, and the other is in the Rasa dance in chapter 29, that all the gopis came running, and Krishna started teasing them. Oh, you've given up family and religion, and you've left your husbands. And he spoke the same exact verse. You should immediately return home and worship me there. Now the gopis are on a little bit different platform. They were actually unable to accept that instruction, because the gopis are the gopis. What can we say? That they rejected that, and Krishna eventually accepted them, that yes, you stay. But then even then, they became a little proud that they got to be with Krishna. So Krishna also disappeared from the Rasa dance and gave them a little bit taste of separation, which increased their love and devotion anymore. But in any case, this is really the point, that we're not gopis. We can't demand this, and we're not Yagyapatnis that we could go out and see Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan. But we can accept this principle, Shravana, Darshanat, Dhyanan, Mayi Bhavanu Kirtanat, hearing and chanting about Krishna, worshiping the deities, meditating on Krishna. All of these processes that Srila Prabhupada has given us is how we approach Krishna, not by physical proximity, which we are unqualified and unable to demand anyway. So we can get that same exact type of love that these amazing advanced devotees had. About the Yagyapatnis, one verse says that Dirga Shruta Dhritashaye, that Dirga Shruta, they heard about Krishna before meeting him for a very long time. And Dhritashaya, with great firmness and determination, they continued hearing and hearing about the glories of Krishna and Dhritashaya, and thus they gained this very firm and intense love and attachment for Krishna, simply by hearing about him for a very long time. But again, he stressed, staying with me is not the best means to attain love for me. More important is Shravana, Darshana, Dhyanam. So this is the principle that all of these amazing devotees, even the gopis themselves and the Yagyapatnis and the queens of Vrindavan and these amazing ladies in Hastinapur, are showing to us that we can't demand, and Prabhupada is explaining, we can't demand to be personally with Krishna, but by accepting the process given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can be directly with Krishna. We can directly touch Krishna through hearing and chanting and serving the deities. These are actually not indirect. This is actually direct. It's our material vision that makes us think that when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we're not directly in touch with Krishna and his internal energy. Or when we come before the deities, it's our illusion that makes us think, oh, this is the deity, but Krishna is somewhere else. So this is our illusion. Now, we're devotees. Do we want to see Krishna? Do we want to be with Krishna? Do we want to return back to Godhead and actually be with Krishna? Yes, of course we do. This is, at least in one sense, this is our goal, and every devotee desires this. But again, two things. We have to be very honest about our position, and we have to know the method. The method is through Vipralamba Seva. the service of Krishna in separation. And when you're serving Krishna in separation, the separation disappears. That's actually another form of union. Prabhupada once wrote in a letter to one devotee who expressed that he or she was feeling separation from Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, where you are, you're chanting Hare Krishna. And where I am, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. So because we're both chanting Hare Krishna, that means we're packed up together. So this is my final point, that this doesn't only apply to Krishna, this also applies to our relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Now all of us cannot be in Srila Prabhupada's presence. Some devotees, Prabhupada disciples, actually got to be in Srila Prabhupada's presence, and that's an amazing blessing that we can all appreciate. Just like we appreciate Krishna being with the gopis, we can appreciate and hear about these great devotees who actually got Srila Prabhupada's association. But even those devotees, and also those of us who are second generation, third generation devotees, we don't get to actually be in Srila Prabhupada's personal presence. But we hear about Srila Prabhupada, we chant about him. We should all be constantly consuming all the different, especially the Srila Prabhupada Leela Amrita, we should all be students of, and all the other diaries of devotees written about their interactions with Srila Prabhupada, and reading Srila Prabhupada's books in exactly the same way. This is direct contact and direct service to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is the Samstapaka Acharya, he's the founder Acharya. But if we don't have that close relationship with Srila Prabhupada, then what's the meaning of it? And ISKCON, without the devotees being completely absorbed in Srila Prabhupada, is not going to be a successful institution. We have to do that. We should be hearing and chanting about Prabhupada in the same way. We should understand Prabhupada's mood, Prabhupada's instructions, Prabhupada's likes and dislikes, and not necessarily by imitating, but we should know how to integrate that into our lives and into the practice and principles and policies of ISKCON as well. A long, long ago in Gitanagari, before the institution of the VIHE, they were doing sort of a test run of the VIHE in Gitanagari. Braja Bihari and some other devotees were the initiators of the VIHE, the Vaishnava Institute of Higher Education, it was called. And they were doing test runs of it at Gitanagari. And in one of those test runs, His Holiness Satsarup Maharaj was teaching a course, something about Srila Prabhupada. And in the course of it, different devotees, his disciples or his nephews, other second generation devotees who had not met Srila Prabhupada were speaking about Srila Prabhupada and giving their appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. And at one time he spoke up and he said how he was so amazed and happy and also humbled by the fact that devotees who had never even met Srila Prabhupada could still cultivate such a love and appreciation and devotion to Srila Prabhupada despite never having met him. So this is a wonderful thing, and this is an important thing in our devotional service. And especially it's an important thing if we want to preserve Prabhupada's movement. And we've been going now, 40 something years since Srila Prabhupada's disappearance. And we're still holding on, hopefully, to the corner of Srila Prabhupada's dhoti, hanging on for dear life. And we have to make sure that we're doing this in the same way that we're serving and worshiping and hearing about and absorbing all these different ways of associating with Krishna, although we're not in Krishna's presence. We do the same thing with Srila Prabhupada. In separation, we're finding this union in separation by serving him, by understanding his mood, his teachings, reading his books, maintaining his standards. And if we can't do it after 40, 50 years, then what's the hope of a 10,000 year golden age if we can't do it for 40, 50 years? So this is another, I think, important lesson we can learn from this, how to approach all of those devotees who are disappearing from us. And the Prabhupada disciples will not be here forever. Sadly, one very old Prabhupada disciple, Gaura Hari Prabhu, who I knew a little bit from Gitanagari, he spent many years at Gitanagari, passed away just yesterday or the day before, a very great devotee, and now he's gone. And it's only going to happen more. Actually, many have passed away this year. And the time will come when there won't be any left, devotees who were with Srila Prabhupada. And when that sad day comes, we, second generation, third generation, fourth, fifth, sixth generation, have to carry on that Prabhupada consciousness. Just like now, 5,000 years later, we're trying to carry on the Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years later, we have to struggle to carry on the Prabhupada consciousness with exactly the same principle, that we may never have met him, but we've heard about him, we've worshipped him, we've served him, we've absorbed his life and principles. So I think this is enough on that. Like I said, this is a very amazing verse, hearing this mass ecstasy of the residents of Hastinapur and seeing how one can attain this great level of devotion, even without personal association. Knowing that this opportunity is there and that this is our actual method should be very encouraging for us aspiring devotees in Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If there's any questions or comments, we can take that now.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So if anybody is having any comment, question, please go ahead. You can raise the hand or you can unmute and you can go ahead and ask.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Thank you very much, Kaivalya Prabhu.
I just also wanted to say thank you for expounding and bringing out these points.
You're welcome, Jonah.
Very, very important. I'll just speak for me. Is to remember and understand that we are actually living in the presence of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. It's not
right. And actually, if you'll forgive me for interrupting, I didn't think of it when I was speaking, but someone like yourself, who is also in separation from your own Diksha Guru, you also have to, apply that also in a similar way.
Yes. It's one of those things you almost have to just keep telling yourself until it actually until you really understand that, okay, this is true. It's like you walk into the temple sometimes and you think like it's almost like the familiarity or I don't know if even familiarity. I think it's just you often wonder, like, if Krishna was really there, would I be late?
Right.
Would I be doing the same things if I really believe that Krishna was truly there? I have that conversation sometimes with myself and some other devotees where we reflect, it's like, do we really believe that the deity is Krishna? Do we really believe the holy name is Krishna? Or do we just kind of philosophically understand, okay, yes, this makes sense, that, the name and that which is named are non-different, that it's absolute because it's spiritual. But, do our actions really reflect that mentality? And
right.
This class really drove that point home, and the importance of developing that relationship with Krishna and the Srila Prabhupada and the Guru. And this, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, that's also a nice point that, the philosophical understanding, that's a starting point, but to actually be like that all the time is hard. to maintain that. And that comes by practice and purification. And like I said, even the Yajnapatis, they heard about Krishna for a long time before they got that intense love for Krishna. So what to speak of us? But at least if we're heading in the right direction. Thank you. Anything else?
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Wonderful. Plus my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mata.
This was very nice, because it tells how much they feel that Krishna is living for Dwarka and how much they're feeling. I can easily know. I felt like I'm just present there.
Yeah.
And watching everything.
Yeah.
That's really amazing, that the description and everything, like Prabhupada gave this purport. It was really, he gave the purport and you just elaboratedly told us. That was really something. And I felt myself present there and I felt like tears too.
Jai.
So that was really
That's
something.
wonderful. Yeah, and that's the value of these. We learn philosophy, but we also want to, enter into these pastimes. So that's so nice. Or even if we can't enter into it, at least see it as like a practical demonstration of these pastimes.
Yeah.
Just like another thing, going back to Srila Prabhupada, I remember when I first, long ago, before I moved into the temple and I became a life member and I got a bunch of books, and then I went away to college for a year. And one of the books I had was Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, which at that time only one volume had been written and published, Planting the Seed. And I remember that reading that was so important for me because it was actually seeing an example of a person who's actually Krishna consciousness, that it's actually possible for someone to do that and live that and demonstrate it. And actually, I had like 4 or 5 books, and I feel like each book taught me something different. And that's what I got from the Lilamrita, like an appreciation for Prabhupada as an amazing person in himself, but also an example that he's not Krishna in the spiritual world. I'd say a person like me. He's not a person like me, but he's a person who's living this life of Krishna consciousness and showing how to do it. And so wonderful. And then I had Nectar of Devotion, which taught me about like the sweetness of Krishna's pastimes. I used to love reading that, all the different pastimes that Prabhupada explains in Nectar of Devotion. Even though I didn't understand the philosophy of it, I was loving the pastimes. And then Bhagavad Gita, giving the basic teachings. And I had the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So anyway, all these books are there, and the philosophy has to be there, and the example and the appreciation and the emotional investment in these things have to be there, that when we see these devotees crying and lamenting and loving with Krishna, we should feel at least a little bit of resonance of that in our heart. That's nice. That's a good thing. Thank you very much, Mother.
The way he wrote the purports and Prabhupada, it's just fully how much he must have felt.
Yeah.
Writing these things, and reading and explaining like this, like you, and it makes people to be involved in that and be feeling like directly we are seeing everything.
Yeah. And actually, that's really to appreciate Krishna and to appreciate Prabhupada. Reading Prabhupada's books and their purports is like, except for perhaps chanting the holy name, this is like the number one thing we should, be doing, because it brings us close to Prabhupada and to Krishna and gives us so much knowledge and so much feeling. Very important thing.
Must have been felt involved in it too much like that. That's why he's a great person, Prabhupada. So reading and thinking of that, we are feeling it, we're feeling in that.
Yeah.
And not only Krishna's name, fame, and form. I see everywhere in the trees are birds, and I feel how much creation is there and how much Krishna must have taken, and Krishna must be there. And the way birds are singing, the way trees are doing, we can feel all that. So thank you very much for a nice class, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment?
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much, Prabhu.
You
Thank
can
you.
go. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, very nice class. And hearing your class increased my faith, little faith. Sometimes I begin to lose faith. So all the 2 shlokas you gave. And there were, I have one question. Everyone was present there. In the text 9, 10, it says Gandhari, Subhadra, Draupadi, but I don't see Vidur there. Where was Vidur then?
Say that again, please.
Everyone was present there.
Yes.
In the text 9, 10, it says Subhadra, Draupadi, Kunti, Uttara, Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, Yutsa. All
Yes.
the names are there, but I don't see the name of Vidur. Vidur.
Well, it's he was certainly there, but all I can say is that it's maybe a partial list, or was Vidura out on pilgrimage at that time? I'm not sure, because there was some period of time when he was out on pilgrimage.
Yeah, out of pilgrimage.
Oh, okay. Because last night I had this dream. I was saying in my dream that Krishna was saying to Vidur, and then suddenly I woke up. Just remember that in my dream I was saying Krishna
That's
was saying
auspicious.
Vidur. So I thought Vidur. Then remember now Vidur was no. I don't see Vidur's name here.
Yes. So so maybe he wasn't named because it was a partial list, or maybe he was away on pilgrimage at that time.
Oh, okay.
I'm not certain exactly, but one of those.
Oh,
But he's another amazing devotee.
I think I remember a little bit. He might be on pilgrimage. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very nice class. Very detailed. Thank you so much.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for putting
Very
all
kind.
this. Thank you for putting all these points and trying to express about the sincerity of the ISKCON movement. Very, very appropriate. And Dronacharya Prabhu question also enlightened a little bit to me, which I was not thinking. I mean, so nicely explained everything. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Actually, I'm really just trying to preach to myself, but thank you everyone for appreciating. Also,
You give always nice class, Prabhu.
anything else? Question or comment? Or it's a little late. Perhaps we could get announcements and.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Prabhuji, for like throughout the wonderful session as usually you do. It was really full of the nectar, and was having too much of excitement while you were delivering the class, all the points. Especially I liked the point you brought for these 2 verses which are exactly 100% same. Like when Krishna is saying to the Yagyapatni, and another time he is saying to the Gopi that Sravana the Darsana Dhyanad Mai Bhava.
Yeah. Actually, when I first found or first realized that same verse was repeated a few years ago, for some reason I became very fascinated by it. The exact verse is repeated twice, and it made it stick in my mind.
Exactly. So I was having so far impression, like in Bhagavad Gita, we have that Manamana Bhav Madbhakta Madhyajivana 934 and 1865. That I had only in my mind, like it is same, but it is not exactly same. It is 7.
Right.
3 lines are same.
Right, but the repetition is significant.
Exactly, but having similar translation meaning of that. So that I was thinking, no, exactly same. I mean, so that is matching 2 places, but this is 100% matching, and which is having very, very good relation. Like one is Krishna instructing to the consoling to the Yagyapatni, and another place consoling to the Gopis. So it was really wonderful to know that, and you brought all the points. It was mesmerizing. And one quick question I had, if you can, like bhav, anubhav, satvika, vyavacharani, hearing and chanting. So vyavacharani, when we say that, so sometimes we think like vyavichari buddhi, something Vyabhichari is very bad thing. So can you please explain, Prabhuji, a little bit, can you put light on that, how it comes in the bhav, love for Krishna, in terms of Vyabhichari also?
I don't really have much or anything to say on that topic. I'd have to, research it, look it up and think about it. Just that, just in a general sense that all of these 5 Vyabhichari bhav, that was the one that I had forgotten. Just that these 5 vibhavs all combine and integrate into the full experience of a devotee's relationship with Krishna. The vibhav, the stimulus, and the spontaneous emotion, and the intentional actions, and the Vyabhichari bhavs are emotional. What are they? They're like emotional reactions that come and go, appear, and then subside. And then the sthayi bhav, which is one's permanent relationship with Krishna, what we usually say, when we speak of one's rasa with Krishna, I think we usually mean this sthayi bhav. So I don't really, I'm no expert on it. I'd have to research it and look into it to really comment on it in any significant way.
Sure, Prabhuji.
But
Nice.
if you know something on it, feel free to speak.
No, Prabhuji, I do not know. In fact, I was noting down, like it was really, pinching to me like how it is named as Vyabhichari looks odd something. So I was just imagining, correlating, is it related to some Putana and all, they come to the Krishna also, but they have intention very bad, like Vyabhichari kind of, the Dush Prakriti kind of, means not positive, like, but Krishna gave the mother, so does it come to that or not? I do not know that, never heard also.
That's interesting, and I'll tell you what, I'll look into it a little this week, and maybe next week I could save 5 minutes to look into it if there's any interest, and because like I said, I'm not prepared to really speak anything on it.
No, Hare Krishna. Nice.
Hare Krishna.
Nice
It's late now. Any final announcements for tonight?
I just wanted to announce that we have a guest speaker tonight for the Sunday Feast program. His Grace Vasu Ghosh Prabhu will be speaking for Bhagavad Gita tonight. The senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, very, very interesting devotee in Baltimore Rath Yatra. I got a chance to meet him yesterday, and brings a wealth of wisdom in his Bhagavad Gita discourses. So I hope you can join us. Balabhadra Prabhu will also be there. He'll be leading the kirtan. So it should be a really nice program. I know a lot of devotees went to the Sadhu Sangha retreat out in Utah and won't be there, but we should have a really nice program tonight. So we hope to see you there starting at 4:30.
Jai. Thank you very much, everybody. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki
Hare Krishna.